Welcome to a new tutorial. In this case, the second part of the tutorials for estimation of measurement uncertainty. At the end of the first part of the tutorial that was published in August 2021, it was already announced that this second part would be focused on Section E, Reporting Results, of the AQC DG-SANTE document, where the guidelines on reporting and interpreting pesticide residue analytical results qualified with measurement uncertainty are established. Again, this second part of the tutorial has been prepared by Professor Antonio Valverde and myself, Carmen Ferrer, from the University of Almería, on behalf of the European Reference Laboratory for Pesticide Residues in Fruits and Vegetables. Let's start remembering that all information on uncertainty of results in pesticide residue analysis in the AQC document is included in Section E, Reporting Results, and in Appendix C. It is important to note here that Appendix C is exactly the same in both the current revision of the document and the revision evaluated in the first part of the tutorial, which was devoted to analyze just this Appendix C. So, in this second part of the tutorial, we will analyze the current guidelines, SANTE 11312 of 2021, specifically the subsections of Section E entitled Correction for Method Bias, Qualifying Results with Measurement Uncertainty, and Interpretation of Results for Enforcement Purposes. But before diving into Section E, to better understand its contents, let's recall the basic principles and practical implications of the concept measurement uncertainty. According to the GAM definition, measurement uncertainty is a parameter associated with the result of a measurement that characterizes the dispersion of the values that could reasonably be attributed to the measurand. This parameter may be either a standard deviation, which would be the standard uncertainty U sub C, or the width of a confidence interval, the expanded uncertainty U. The standard uncertainty and the expanded uncertainty are related by the coverage factor K, which depends on the type of distribution and the level of confidence, but it is usual to assume, by default, a normal distribution with a value of K2 for a confidence level of 95%. Undoubtedly, the quality of a result is much higher when it is reported with its uncertainty, because it presents a previously fixed high level of confidence. But this will have reduced or potentially no value if the estimated uncertainty is not realistic. So this is the key. The estimated uncertainty must be realistic. The example presented in this slide refers to the measurement of a pesticide residue, and it is assumed that measurement of the identical sample is repeated several times in one or more laboratories, obtaining different results, normally distributed around the mean or the true value. In this example, the standard uncertainty is 0.15 milligrams per kilogram, and consequently, the expanded uncertainty is 0.30 milligrams per kilogram, with a coverage factor of 2 and 95% of interval of confidence. And the relative expanded uncertainty is 35% approximately. These uncertainty values are quite realistic considering the characteristics of multi-residue methods for pesticide analysis. Certainly, we should not have much confidence in a laboratory reporting a pesticide residue result of 0.85 plus minus 0.01 milligram per kilogram. This laboratory could argue that it is using a very precise methodology and that it has followed a comprehensive procedure for calculating measurement uncertainty based on the GAM mathematical model. However, proficiency test results have shown that laboratories producing permanently results with such low uncertainty do not exist. Today, it is worldwide accepted that measurement uncertainty is a positive parameter associated with the test result, which must be neither too low nor too high, but realistic and reliable for the intended purpose. However, today it seems to be also worldwide accepted that the application of the GAM standardized modeling procedure is not suitable to obtain realistic uncertainty estimations in the area of chemical analysis and overall in pesticide residue analysis. This is the reason for which different international bodies, such as EURL-FV, EURL-FV, NORTEST, or Codex, have published a number of specific guidelines on estimation of uncertainty of results using alternative approaches known as empirical, practical, or top-down approaches, which are based on whole method performance investigations or scientific judgments from previous experience. Here, we can see a realistic roadmap for uncertainty estimation approaches in pesticide residue analytical measurement. This is the roadmap published by EURL-FV in its technical report 1 of 2007, but modified to include just those uncertainty estimation approaches currently proposed and applied in pesticide residue analysis. Modifications made by Valverde et al. On the EURL-FV roadmap are indicated in red. It is very important to point out that these empirical approaches are accepted in certain cases by the accreditation standard ISO 17025, specifically in the technical requirements 7.6 of ISO 17025 of 2017, entitled Evaluation of Measurement Uncertainty. It is stated, where the test method precludes rigorous evaluation of measurement uncertainty, an estimation shall be made based on an understanding of the theoretical principles or practical experience of the performance of the method. Without any doubt, multi-residue analysis of pesticides is one of these cases. Let us now turn to the guidelines in Section E, Reporting Results, of the SANTE document, which have been established taking into account all the international guidelines just mentioned. We will start with paragraph E12, in which a default relative expanded measurement uncertainty of 50% is recommended by regulatory authorities to be used in cases of enforcement decisions, in cases of MRL exceedances. This recommendation is supported by the findings published in 2001 by Lutz Alder et al. On the variance observed in proficiency tests conducted in Germany, Canada, and Australia, and by the results obtained in the proficiency tests organized for the last 20 years by the European Commission for analysis of pesticide residues in food. However, as also stated in paragraph E12, a prerequisite for the use of the default 50% expanded uncertainty is that the laboratory must demonstrate that its own relative expanded uncertainty is less than 50%. This is the reason why Appendix C in Approach 1 of the document is devoted to explain how the laboratory can estimate its own expanded uncertainty by using validation and/or quality control data. Examples given in Appendix C were already evaluated in Part 1 of this tutorial, and this slide summarizes the terminology used there and shows the two final formulas proposed to perform the estimation of the relative standard uncertainty from the results obtained in N recovery tests. One to be used when the analytical results are not corrected with the mean recovery factor, and another one to be used when the mean recovery factor is applied before reporting the result. Let's take the example presented in Part 1 of the tutorial to show again the significance of reporting a result, either corrected or non-corrected, with the mean recovery factor. This slide presents graphically how this laboratory would report an analytical result of 0.34 milligrams per kilogram. If the result is reported uncorrected with the mean recovery factor, the estimated relative expanded uncertainty would be 50%, and the result would be reported as 0.34 plus minus 0.17 milligrams per kilogram. In the case where the result is reported after correction with the mean recovery factor, the estimated relative expanded uncertainty would be 31%, and the final result would be reported as 0.40 plus minus 0.12 milligrams per kilogram. The key question here is, when should an analytical result be corrected with the recovery factor? The correct answer to this question, strictly speaking, is on this slide. A measurement result should always be corrected if the bias is significant and based on reliable data, such as certified reference material. The table gives, as an example, the average recovery values obtained from N validation or quality control recovery tests that would lead to establishing that the bias is statistically significant by applying the two-tailed student's t-test with 95% confidence for two different values of the relative standard deviation of the recovery data, 10 and 20%. We can see that in the above example, with n equal to 14 recovery tests and a value of 15% for the relative standard deviation of the recovery results, mean recovery values lower than 91% would mean that the bias would be significant, and therefore the analytical results should be corrected with the recovery factor. However, the strict application of this criterion in routine analysis of pesticide residues is impractical and really unfeasible. This is the reason why paragraph E4 of the SANTE document proposes a practical generalized criterion. As a practical approach, residue results do not have to be adjusted for method bias when the mean bias is less than 20% and the default expanded measurement uncertainty is of 50% is not exceeded. In case the bias exceeds 20%, the result can be mathematically corrected using a recovery factor. Regarding the recovery percentage to be used for correction for recovery, there are multiple options. These include the mean recovery obtained during initial validation, the mean recovery obtained during ongoing validation, or the mean or individual recoveries obtained for spike samples concurrently analyzed with the samples. The most appropriate option depends on the recovery data available for a method for the various pesticides and matrices and may therefore differ for different laboratories. In case of lack of a suitable recovery factor to be used for recovery correction, alternative approaches to reduce method bias may be considered to avoid the need for recovery correction. For example, the use of standard addition before sample extraction, or addition of an isotopically labeled internal standard before sample extraction, or the use of procedural calibration. An overview of the options to account for method bias and use of recovery correction factors is provided in tables 1 and 2 in Appendix E, which was included in the last revision of the document. To conclude, we must refer to paragraph E14, in which the decision rule for interpretation of results for enforcement purposes is established. This decision rule has been formulated following the EURL-FV guidance document on the use of uncertainty information in compliance assessment. The key concept here is that decisions on rejection of a product must be based on a decision rule fixed taking into account the confidence level required for a correct decision. The SANTE decision rule for rejection is: the MRL is exceeded if the measured value exceeds the MRL by more than the expanded uncertainty. It is to say, the measured value minus the expanded uncertainty must be higher than the MRL. With this decision rule, the value of the measurand is above the MRL with at least 97.5% confidence. This means that the probability of false rejection associated to this decision rule is as much 2.5%. This slide also shows how, when a specific value of uncertainty is assumed, any decision rule defines a limit of decision. In this case, if we introduce an expanded uncertainty value of 50% in the SANTE decision rule for rejection, the decision limit for rejection becomes twice the MRL. Finally, it is worth mentioning that in certain cases, the application of the rounding rules established in paragraph E6 and Appendix D of the document for both the measured result and the estimated uncertainty can create some confusion when deciding if a sample is compliant or non-compliant, according to our decision rule. This could be the case of example 4 presented in Appendix D of the document. However, this Appendix D solves any doubts, and for example, there it is justified, as indicated on the slide, that a result of 0.21 milligrams per kilogram with a relative expanded uncertainty of 50% can be considered compliant against an MRL value of 0.10 milligrams per kilogram. This is a consequence of the following general rules proposed in Appendix D for rounding the estimated expanded uncertainty. First one is the expanded measurement uncertainty will be estimated by using the final rounded result. A second rule would be the value of the expanded uncertainty is always rounded up unless the first non-retained digit would be 0. And the last one would be the value of the expanded uncertainty should be given with the same number of decimals as the rounded result. Let us conclude by recalling the premises with which we have introduced the first part of this tutorial and emphasizing that the EUPT results support the use of a default value of 50% relative expanded uncertainty if the test method has been validated and has been controlled according to the AQC DG-SANTE criteria. And this is all. Many thanks for your attention.